Our story starts back in January of 2014. Found out that we were expecting a baby. Our oldest was 3 and our other son was only 6 months. So it came as a surprise, but not a surprise, I guess. And we were really excited. People were wondering why on earth we were having another baby so fast. But we knew we wanted another one, and we thought, why not now? We had had a miscarriage at 9 weeks between our first 2 boys, and we knew that nothing was guaranteed really that first trimester. It's easy to lose the baby, I guess. So we just thought, you know what, whatever happens, happens. It wasn't easy for us to get pregnant with our second living son, and so we thought, we'll just, whatever happens, happens. Well, whatever happened, month 1, and there we were going to be having a baby in September of 2014. Actually, just a couple days after our oldest's birthday was my due date. So the pregnancy progressed. I was feeling amazing. I was working out 5 days a week, eating well. Ended up actually only gaining like 8.5 pounds my entire pregnancy. Busy chasing my boys, busy working, was perfect in all sense of the word. And we made it through our 20-week ultrasound, and I thought, okay, we made it through 20 weeks, everything is going to be fine. That's this naive and ignorant mindset, I guess, that you have before you've experienced a loss after the first trimester anyways. And everything looked great at my 20-week ultrasound. I asked like 4 times, I'm like, are you sure everything looks okay? I'm so small. Are you sure that there's nothing wrong with our baby? Everything was perfect, and we were overjoyed. So the pregnancy progressed, kept feeling great, baby was growing, everything was wonderful. We pulled our boys out of their current daycare. There wasn't an infant opening there, so we had to pull them out of the current daycare and find alternative care. We moved bedrooms around upstairs, had to bribe our oldest with the bunk bed to get him into a new room, moved our other little guy into a different bedroom, bought another crib, got everybody else situated, new spots in our vehicle, all of that. I went in for a 36-week OB check, and everything was great. Baby's heart was beating away. I was 100% effaced. I was dilated to a 2, and the baby's head was +1. We thought, okay, anytime now, and anytime after 36 weeks was not scary. We had made it to a good point in pregnancy. I continued that week, still felt great. I remember laying in bed on a Tuesday night, and my baby was just kicking like crazy. And I remember telling my husband, I remember telling my sister, I just wish that I could bottle up that kicking and that movement for 5 years from now, when I want another baby, but I really don't want another baby, and just have a little piece of that back. So we continued on. That was a Tuesday night. Wednesday, I still felt fine. I felt my baby, like I felt movement in my stomach. I went on Thursday, August 21st, 2014. I went for my regular 37-week OB check with my midwife at the clinic. And I was contracting on my way up the stairs to the office, and I had to actually stop to breathe through it. And I thought, oh my goodness, maybe I'm going to have a baby today yet. So I got in the room, midwife and I were joking around and talked about how I'd been feeling and everything, and I laid down on the table, and she was going to also check me that day to see if I had progressed from the week before. And I laid down, and she put the Doppler on my belly, and there was no swishing, there was no beating, there was nothing. And instantly, I knew something was horribly wrong. I guess my mind hadn't gone to my baby is dead at that point, but I knew something wasn't right. She searched for a little bit longer, asked me when the last time I had felt my baby moving was. I told her, just that morning I had felt movement in my stomach, and this is my 3rd pregnancy at this point. Certainly I know when something is wrong or not, or so I thought. And so she said she was going to go grab the ultrasound machine, the portable machine. She came back in the room, and I remembered her distinctly briefing me, just because I don't hear or see what I'm looking for doesn't mean it's not there. She put it on my belly. There was nothing, and she had kept the screen away from me, but I knew by her face. I looked at her, and I was terrified, and I just said, I'm really worried. And she just looked at me and she said, "Me too." My husband wasn't there, because why would I bring my husband to a 37-week OB check? And I ended up texting him and calling him, trying to get a hold of him, because something wasn't right. And at that point I knew our baby was dead. We didn't know that we were having a girl or a boy. So I texted him, no reply. I called him and he answered, and I just said that they can't find the baby's heartbeat. You need to come right now. Meanwhile, my midwife walked me from the clinic down to the ultrasound on the lower level, and I remember her holding my hand in the elevator. There were people in the elevator with us, but yet it felt like no one was there. It was awkward, it was uncomfortable. It was the longest elevator ride of my life. We got down to the ultrasound area and I laid on the table, and as life will have it, one of the women that lives in my neighborhood was our ultrasound tech, and she asked me if she wanted me to get a different one, and I said no, that it was totally fine. At this point, I already knew. And I laid down, and she put the ultrasound on my stomach, and she just said, "Rachel, I'm so sorry." And I still wasn't crying, because there's just this piece of shock that you can't even get over. And the baby was also breech at that point. So I went from 36 weeks and ready for delivery to 37 weeks, a dead baby and a breech baby at that. So we walked out of the ultrasound room, and my husband was just getting there at that point. We were kind of ushered into a private room down there, and that was when I lost it and couldn't believe that this was happening. I just wanted it over. I just wanted it done. So my midwife kind of was making plans and consulting with physicians, and I just wanted a C-section, and I wanted one right then. I had delivered vaginally for both of my boys and had great deliveries, so there was really no reason why I shouldn't or couldn't deliver that way, but I just wanted it to be over, and a C-section seemed like the best way to make that happen. That wasn't the best choice for me, though. My midwife told me I needed to go home, that we needed that night with our baby, that last time being at home together. And in those moments I was angry. I didn't want that night. I wanted to just be done. But looking back on it now, I'm so grateful that we had that night together. So the next morning, August 22nd, 2014, it was a Friday, we got up as if we had slept that night and went to the hospital. They did a version to flip my baby head down, broke my water, started Pitocin, and labor began. That was about 7:30 in the morning. At 2:25 p.m., the same time that our oldest was born, Finley Lou Sherber, our first daughter, was born sleeping. It was such an emotional day. There was so much sadness, but there was so much love. We had invited our families to come up to the hospital to meet their granddaughter, their niece, and that was really wonderful. We had our pastor come and kind of just pray over us and pray with us, and that was great also. Looking back on it, we couldn't have asked for a more healing experience from that time in the hospital. We had a care counselor or grief counselor from 11 Angels, a local organization that was also with us that day, and she helped us to create memories and do things that we never would have thought to do. And she took pictures, and Finley had lots of hair. My boys were both born bald, so we cut locks of hair off that we still have at home, and we did footprints and handprints, and we dressed her, and we kind of went through our bedtime routine with her just like we would have with our boys, and sang to her, and just really spent time kind of looking her over and getting to know her as much as you can. So we spent about 8 hours with her, and her body was deteriorating by that point. We knew that we needed to get out of there before we wouldn't want to see her or remember her like that anymore. So after a really yucky long battle with our funeral home, which thankfully we didn't have to fight again, that care counselor had stepped in and kind of done all of that for us, they did agree to pick her up. that night. It was important to my husband to be able to hand his one and only daughter over to the funeral home director and give her away in that sense. He wasn't going to get that at a wedding. He wasn't going to have that father-daughter dance, and he felt like that was his moment as a dad. That was his role. That was his duty. So he did that, and I remember probably about 6 o'clock that night looking at our care counselor and saying, oh, we've made it through the hardest part of the day, like the delivery, the afterwards, our family's coming, all of that. And she just looked at me and she said, let's not say that until the day's over. Well, little did I know that leaving your child behind, or leaving them with the funeral director and leaving a birthing center with no baby, that would be the hardest moments of the day. I remember being reminded to breathe. I remember falling down and just sobbing in the hallway after my husband had handed her over. And just not moments that you could ever be prepared for. Definitely the absolute hardest moments of our lives. And I'm glad that just almost 13 months, or just over 13 months later, we're still standing and we're still living life. But yeah, that was really awful moments. We did, as I mentioned, have 2 older children. It was just shy of our oldest's birthday, so he was almost 4, and the other one was 14 months when Finley was born. Our oldest struggled a lot. He still does, actually. He just still does. Just the emotional piece is hard for him to understand. We told our boys the Thursday night we had found out, so the 21st of August, and remember laying in our bed and having to tell our not quite 4-year-old that this baby he had been waiting for and planning for, this baby that he had to switch daycares for and switch bedrooms and move spots in our vehicles, and that baby was not coming home. And this was his first experience with death, so trying to explain death and then the fact that it was your sibling, it's just really, it's not ever going to be easy, but it was really awful. And he didn't understand it. We thought we were protecting him, so we did not have him come up to the hospital that day, even though we had been encouraged by our care counselor to do that. We thought that we were going to protect him from this trauma. Well, looking back on it, there's no way you can protect a child from that. I mean, it was way too close to home. So they were dragged through the ditch with us. In those early days, there's no filter, there's no control. If you need to fall apart, you fall apart. You can't not fall apart. So obviously there's a piece of regret there, but we have so many pictures and we remember her every day, really. I mean, we have a canvas in our playroom of all 3 of our kids hanging up in there. Our younger son he knows who she is, and he runs around saying Finley, but he obviously was too young to remember the actual trauma surrounding her birth. But our oldest does, and he talks about her daily, asks questions, still trying to understand it. Our faith has been a huge part of our surviving the loss, really. Our church was wonderful. Our whole community, our church community, was bringing us meals and praying for us, and it was just really, truly a blessing. And from the very beginning, I had said, if Finley's short life and untimely death can increase the population of heaven by 1, or if she can increase faith in someone, then her life was not in vain and it was worth it. So finding ways to remember her and serve others through that, through 11 Angels I began volunteering with, has been extremely healing for us. And just like I said, keeping her as a part of our family, that she won't ever be forgotten, but at the same time allowing ourselves to continue living life.